Good morning, everyone here from Finland. And we have not turned over to daylight saving time yet. And I realize that in the United States, you have. This is not, there's no problem here for the people in Australia and New Zealand. But if you're on the East Coast, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And even the central time zone is 1 o'clock, and Mountain time is midnight. And maybe a few of you I can see are starting at 11 o'clock on the West Coast. I appreciate your presence, and you always know that if it's not possible for you to attend one of these meetings, they do meet. We do post these on Makara. And increasingly, when we get a good run of time, we'll have things up on the YouTube channel as well. So let's just, we're starting a new section. We're not going to go long today, famous last words, But we may go up to this thing called the Causes of Glamour. It's a few pages. We'll see how far we get. And pretty much this is where we're beginning. It's our 108th meeting. It's an important number, 108 has so much to do with the head center and the way we count the petals of the highest head center. And also, it seems that every Hindu temple is based upon this number 108. And if you, little random occultism here, we hear about the 105 Kumaras, or lords of the flame, that came to our planet from the Venus chain within our planetary scheme. And if you count them in another way, there are 108 of them, not 105. The fourth Kumara, maybe Sanat Kumara, can be considered the 105th, but there are three esoteric Kumaras, or three esoteric Buddhas of activity, and they are conforming to that number, so 105 plus 3 gives us 108. It's all, well, the Christ said in the Bible that the very hairs on your head are numbered. It's all according to number, and that is a great regulatory factor in the cycles that we are experiencing. So the whole question of time and number are inseparable. And that's why, if you think about it, when we talk about in the secret doctrine the realm of number and the realm of no number, that realm of no number is the perfect great zero, formless, and yet the source of all form. It is the absolute. So that's the realm of no number. But anytime we think of something, we automatically, of course, create a number, because we make it definite, Now let's see. Where am I? Who am I? What's going on here? All right. So let's just have a little gathering together, however many of us have managed to be here. Some very early, I can see that in England in 6 in the morning, and Michael is here to back us up at 2 in the morning. So, wow, we have some stalwarts here. So you can always feel, probably, in the head center, the coming together of the group, which overcomes the time and space, and it is as if we are all together in one field of consciousness. And we offer ourselves as an instrument to be used in helping to clear the 18 lower subplanes, really. But, we're specifically focusing on the glamour part of it, but the mental part is very important, and we're going to be dealing somewhat with that today. And the etheric part is very, very important. I'm trying to think about, we'll be dealing with the glamour today. It's a kind of a sixth ray glamour, but if you have fifth ray going along with it and some first ray, it's called the self-assured narrow point of view. The self-assured narrow point of view. It makes a person rather unteachable until that is loosened up and a person realizes how much of the truth he or she has been excluding from estimation. Well, we'll get there. So let's just sound an Om, confirming our willingness to work together and our gathering together in the mode of service. Well, I'd just like to welcome some of you, and I realize some come in later, but I only do this once. And for those who come in later, welcome to them too. But just good morning, Alexandra. Really early in the morning. Okay, welcome. Let's see, Anne-Marie and Annette and Antoinette and Ario, Barbara, also very early, I think, Barbara, Catherine, George, Karen, Leslie, Mariana, Marissa, Martha, Natnia, Rebecca, Risto, and Veronica. And over here on the staff side, we have Michael, Stacy, and Tuija helping us keep straight. And we're ready to go. So this little section, let's just see if we can look at this. It deals with, and you might want to note it, it has some excellent definitions of the dweller on the threshold, which I think there's a lot of glamour surrounding this particular phenomenon. And sometimes you see, I remember when I picked up a book by Manly Hall more than 50 years ago. Yeah, I think it was a long time ago. And it was called The Lost Keys of Masonry. It really got me interested in Freemasonry. And there is this picture of the candidate looking, probably in a white robe, holding up the Ankh, which is like the symbol of Venus, that beam of clarifying fifth ray soul-derived light. And before him is this horrible monster, at least 3 times taller than he is. And he's holding this dweller, as it were, at bay. So when the concept is new to you, it makes quite an impression when you see supposedly this part of yourself. But I think that the Tibetans' definitions are a little less dramatic and a little more sober and sane, and I think we can take this into consideration, realizing, however, that not all of us are really fighting with the dweller per se. We're fighting with the dweller loosely defined, or parts of it, but to fight with the real dweller on the threshold, we need to be an initiate of the third degree, and he'll get into that, not so much right here, but a little bit later. That's the first moment when you catch just a glimpse of the completed dweller, rather than just inhibitory aspects of this unredeemed aspect of ourself. So we'll go on here. Glamour upon the higher mental plane, the dweller on the threshold. At least the higher mental plane is involved. So we'll see if we can read maybe a few pages. We will now touch very briefly. Later he elaborates a bit more in surprising ways, because you begin to see that something called the dweller is still around after the fourth initiation, and even features into the fifth initiation. So that maybe, I didn't expect that, and I don't know if you did either, but it's a more technical point of view. We will now touch very briefly upon the problem of the dweller on the threshold. The dweller is oft regarded as a disaster, a horror to be avoided, and as a final and culminating evil. Now, in a kind of less technical way, in a less technical manner, DK has described World War II as humanity fighting its dweller. Yes, but that is true in a non-technical sense. Certainly, it was fighting its negativity, and whether the entire dweller faced humanity at that time, well, not according to his later definitions, but certainly aspects of it, the negativity accumulated within humanity over many, many centuries and millennia did face humanity. It faced its, and let's just say the angel of the presence had to enter the picture as well. So this final culminating evil, that's how it's sometimes seen. I would remind you, nevertheless, and see what this means to you, that the dweller is one who stands before the gate of God, who dwells in the shadow of the portal of initiation, and who faces the angel of the presence, open-eyed, as the ancient scripture calls it. So let's kind of look at that and give it a little emphasis, because I think it gives us a different point of view, and it begins to show how, in fact, what we have considered ourselves to be as a personality is the dweller on the threshold. The dweller is the one who stands before the gate of God, and by that, of course, we do mean the gate of initiation, who dwells in the shadow of the portal of initiation, because, the dweller must eventually pass through that gate, which it does later and will be described, and who faces the angel of the presence open-eyed, as the ancient scripture calls it, with full awareness. And it all begins with the interest in becoming self-aware. So many people don't want to look at their personality, their perhaps subconscious aspects. They don't want to look at what they think. They don't want to engage in that often painful and humbling process of self-examination, and therefore they are not open-eyed about themselves. But by the time we are really facing the angel of the presence, which is coming, on the path of initiation, we are very open-eyed about what this personality is. Some good definitions here. The dweller can be defined as the sum total of the forces of the lower nature as expressed in the personality prior to illumination, to inspiration, and to initiation. And by the way, there's a little astrology thrown in here because it's sequential signs that are being referenced here. We're told that illumination occurs in Scorpio. Inspiration occurs in Sagittarius, and initiation, of course, in Capricorn. So, of course, we all have some degree of light and some degree of aspiration, and we're entering into new things, which is one of the definitions of initiation. But from another perspective, we have not experienced the wholeness before we are ready to face this dweller as a true third degree initiate. So everything we are prior to real illumination, to real inspiration, and to real initiation, prior really to soul infusion. That's what we are as a personality. The personality at this stage is exceedingly potent, and the dweller embodies all the psychic and mental forces which down the ages have been unfolded in a man and nurtured with care. So, what can we also say about this? From the form side of life, the dweller on the threshold embodies many good things, useful forces, when properly directed. And that's the thing. When they just run off on their own and do not follow the plan of the soul, which is a reflection of the plan of hierarchy and the planetary logos, then there's a problem. So these are good definitions, right? The dweller can be looked upon as the potency of the threefold material form. Prior, see, it's all a question of time, isn't it? Prior to its consecration and dedication to the life of the soul and to the service of humanity, of God and service of hierarchy of God and humanity. So there comes a time when we really offer everything we have to these factors: hierarchy, God as Shambhala, humanity as our brothers and sisters, and then our life really begins to change. That doesn't mean there's no struggle, but you do not have a completely unredeemed dweller. You have a mixture, and eventually the dweller is completely redeemed. More definitions, because we need these, so that as occultists in training, we don't just speak in a glib manner without depth of thought about this, and every time something goes wrong in someone's life, we say, oh, you're fighting with your dweller. It just isn't true. But all of those battles with our own negativity, especially when we recognize what that negativity is. All of those battles lead up to a final climaxing battle with the sum total of that negativity and the sum total of our powers, if those powers are not dedicated to God, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. The dweller on the threshold is all that a man is apart from the higher spiritual self. That's a good one, isn't it? You know, if we are clear about our definitions, then we have a chance of approaching this rather glamorized, misunderstood subject with greater understanding. It is the third aspect of divinity as expressed in the human mechanism, and it can be very highly developed. In a way, you know, the members of the Black Lodge or the lords of materialism, they create a very powerful dweller because they have, for the most part, divorced themselves from the second aspect of divinity, and when they use the second aspect, it is entirely in the service of the third aspect. There are some features of the soul which allow you to use the energy of magnetism, but you can use it for ill purposes, and they do. So, it is the third aspect of divinity as expressed in the human mechanism, and this third aspect, and this is the key for all of us, isn't it? It's just what's going on our planet too with our second-ray soul and third-ray personality. This third aspect must eventually be subordinated to the second aspect, the soul. Now, if you want to simplify everything we're doing in our long-term training, this is what we're doing. We are learning how to subordinate the third aspect to the second aspect. These two great contrasting forces, the angel and the dweller. Now, you know, by the angel, we can mean the angel of the presence, with sort of the pervading presence in our causal body of the solar angel, and also we can mean something additional, and I guess I could call it this. From the monad comes a kind of consciousness, the monad in extension, down to the center of the egoic lotus, and found when we become more spiritual on the second level, the second plane of the higher mental plane. So the kind of mixture or combination between what the solar angel projects into the causal body and our own monadic extension, that's pretty much effectively what the angel is. Though technically, the angel could be considered a member of the fifth creative hierarchy. And, you know, by the fifth creative hierarchy, I mean, and you know what I mean, this. This is the fifth creative hierarchy, apparently projected into the realm of the human personality. Let's just say a double sacrifice is involved with this fifth creative hierarchy of solar angels, because they deliberately fell onto the cosmic physical plane again, and then they fell out of the cosmic ethers through a projection into the dense physical body of our planetary logos, of which the mental plane is a part. All right, so two great contrasting forces, the angel and the dweller, are brought together face to face, and the final conflict takes place. Now, Tuija and I were talking about this, and when you have strong Leo, you're always hunting the dweller within you. It's like Hercules, the symbol of the soul and the disciple, and the lion, the symbol of the king of beasts. And that that dweller is always escaping out the back door of the cave or the back entrance until you make it impossible for those characteristics we know as the dweller to escape, and you really begin to know yourself. And of course, it's at first it's not a pleasant sight, because many unredeemed qualities stored, let us say, in the lower part of the aura rise up for examination. And that's going to be increasingly the case with humanity, because before the Christ can return, and i.e. before the first initiation can be taken, and before the first initiation can be taken in any one of us, Pluto, the upward pointing arrow, has to do its work and drag to the surface all that is hiding in the lower part of the aura, and must be recognized and destroyed, ejected, etc. So two great contrasting forces, and we all have it. And, it's no good to pretend that we don't. We all have these tendencies within us. And since we are not, by and large, initiates of the third, fourth, or fifth degree, the final battles have not been fought. We're just at the stage, really, of recognizing what is the dweller in our nature, the dweller in its entirety, rather than a few negative traits. I'll read it again. The two great contrasting forces, the angel and the dweller, are brought together face to face, so in full consciousness. And the final, and in a way, you can see from either point of view. You can take the dweller's perspective when you are focused in the personality, or you can take the perspective of the angel of the presence when you're able to look at that personality from a soul vantage point, a soul perspective. They are brought together face to face, and the final conflict takes place. Again, you will note that it is a meeting and a battle between another and higher pairs of opposites. Here we are, fourth kingdom of nature, humanity. We are also, excuse me, the fourth creative hierarchy. And warfare, conflict, friction, contest, combat, all those ideas are unavoidable at first, when the number 4 is involved. So we are a warring kingdom and a warring hierarchy until we manage to become a hierarchy and kingdom that exhibits harmony and skill in action. So another and higher pairs of opposites are battling it out, and the aspirant, that's who we are, has therefore 3 pairs of opposites with which to deal as he progresses towards the light and liberation. And these pairs of opposites on the physical plane, this is the Lemurian method, and it was the method of initiation millions of years ago. The dense and the etheric pair of opposites fought out upon the path of purification, and it's kind of connected with when we recapitulate all this, it's connected with the first degree, on which we do a lot of physical purification. Now, if you look at the map, you'll see it's taking place down here. The 4 systemic ethers and the 3 dense levels are fighting it out, with the 4 systemic ethers increasingly receiving energies from the soul and the higher aspects of our nature. Now, there's also going to be a big battle, and maybe it has something to do with the Judgment Day, when the 4 cosmic ethers fight it out with the 3 lower systemic planes, taken all together. And maybe it won't even happen in this particular solar system. There's other, well, and maybe it will. I mean, there's other battles ahead. And they take place analogously on cosmic levels, just the way our battle is taking place on a systemic and planetary level. So always keep the law of analogy in mind. Then on the astral plane, the well-known dualities fought out on the path of discipleship, high or low desire, or normal or low desire versus aspiration. And it's the place pretty much where, for many people, the soul and the personality are engaged in their first very noticeable battle. Don't forget, we do live in a solar system which is very astral Buddhic, and the number of conscious Davic lives outnumber by more than 2 times, 2 1/3 more conscious Davic lives in our solar system than there are lives which we call man or human. So the astral plane is really important, and our solar logos is still astrally polarized and has not yet achieved what Sirius has achieved, polarization upon the cosmic mental plane, and is moving in that direction but has not yet achieved. Okay, and now what we've been studying this morning on the mental plane, the angel and the dweller, and notice the different paths on which this is occurring. This is on the path of initiation, ruled by the 1st and 7th ray. So it happens later. The true battle between the angel and the dweller, if you just want to see that really happening, just study St. Paul, and Alice Bailey is fond of quoting that, and he really had a struggle. He was a Scorpio, and he was verging upon the 3rd initiation and did take that initiation, and probably later the 4th as well. So he was of a status where this could apply. Many discipleship being ruled by the 3rd and 5th ray, generically, are fighting on the astral plane. And then when we are simply aspirant and we're trying to reorient and purify and all that, our battle around the time of the 1st initiation is on the etheric physical plane, systemically considered. So this is a good little map, a good little tabulation, which shows you where our struggles are. So think of your own struggles, and DK would say, look, if you're not struggling, why aren't you struggling? If you're not having a crisis, why aren't you having a crisis? He would say, where is your struggle relative to this? We'll pause this for a moment. because, the simple fact is that whatever our rays may be, we do have these different contrasting factors in our nature. And always, as we are moving up the ladder of evolution, the lower has to give way to the higher, and it will not do that without a struggle. So it's very important that all of us identify our struggle points. Maybe it's what's called the crisis of opportunity if you're younger, and you see opportunity presenting and you have to make a choice as to whether you're brave enough to take the opportunity. Or maybe later on in life, after having taken the opportunity, it's a crisis of expression. And you have to find the way, using skill in action, to express all you have in line with the divine plan. Those are two of the crises he's talked about. Plus, locating ourselves on this ascending ladder and trying to find the place where the point of struggle is at the moment. Now, DK says, I have given, I should judge. I should judge, he says, given you enough to ponder upon. I would close it, however, by pointing out to you the very practical nature of that which I have communicated, and would urge you to find out in your own practical experience the nature of the battle you have each to fight. Well, he's just saying basically what I was trying to say. To aid you in this, and this is very interesting, I'm going to help you in one very definite way. And I'm not going to get into all this right now, but he's going to give, see, some of us think that when DK was saying, these are your rays, he did it all at once. He did not. He gave the personality ray and the soul ray at first, and he let people really think about that. And now, sometime later, he is adding on the rays of the mental, emotional, and etheric physical vehicle. So that's what he's doing now, after he gave people plenty of chance to think about their rays. Now, I know how interested we all are in the 7 rays, and probably have been for many moons. We're at the conference, we're having the new and latest version of the PIP, Personal Identity Profile. It's more than personal, but, we just call it the PIP for convenience. We're having that version appear, and we'll be discussing it, and people will have the chance to take it on their own computer and so forth. We're revising the method, and it's a good running start, especially when you have a 7-ray seminar going along with it, to get an estimation, maybe a more accurate estimation of what your rays may be. So the rays of the threefold personality, he's taking this glamour group and he's going to focus in on the particular energies they have and what conflicted effect or effect upon others it has. You will then be in a position, he says, to handle yourselves with greater wisdom, to trace more easily the causes of the difficulties. And there are difficulties. And to study more intelligently the effect you may have upon each other and upon those you contact in daily life. Now, it's not only by introspection that we begin to understand our rays, but by actually looking at the effect that we have upon our group and upon other people. And they'll tell you what that effect may be, and then maybe you can take that in and analyze it and see which rays it points to. So you look at how you appear to affect people, and they kind of let you know as well, and that all helps in determining with greater accuracy the rays. Now, in the beginning, DK, in his applications to the groups that he was sponsoring, he had everybody estimate their soul and personality ray, and it turned out there were so many mistakes. And later, he helped to correct those mistakes and to say why they had occurred. He says, I will elaborate in detail the training which should be given to each of the three bodies, taking one of the vehicles at a time and explaining the problem facing each of you in relation to that particular vehicle, and assigning a meditation which will enable you with greater facility to handle the personality from that specific angle. And, this occurred in the book Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, and pretty much in certain instructions that he gave to the whole group. I remember before he had to disband the group, there was a particular instruction in the late 30s where he gave people, for the most part, sometimes calculatedly not so, but for the most part he gave them their mental, emotional, and physical rays, and then he kind of discussed their interaction, and it is really fascinating, as you know. So, we're doing a lot of work on that. There's an astrological group. Elena Dramcini has done a lot of work on the astrology of the disciples, and there are some other advanced students in there that are trying to bring together the astrology and the rays of the disciples. When we know what those energies are, we know what the rays are, but the astrology is another matter, and we try to rectify those charts. And great research is being done, and our colleague BL is doing some wonderful historical research on these people and coming up with who they really were. And since we have quite a bit of distance from them now, the personal factor is somewhat eliminated, and we can study them with benefit and with a degree of impersonality. So you will note from the above that it is therefore my intention to give you a much more careful and intensive training. Now just imagine if you were a student of Master DK, and he was supervising your intensive training. That time will come again in future decades and centuries. Will you profit by it? In the interim, now there are many interims, we're kind of in an interim period right now, right before the third dispensation. Maybe he refers to a different interim. In the interim, and in order that you can apprehend the truth of what I shall later tell you. Now notice his technique. He doesn't just dump the information on you. He has you study yourself first. Will you study yourselves with care during the next 6 months to see if what I later suggest may not be true, is not true? So he has them study themselves from the ray perspective, and then he'll give the ray, and then the contrast between what the disciples assessed and what he says is the real case will always be instructive. In other words, I thought it was this. The master says it's this. Wherein lies the difference? So, he'll be one of the externalized teaching masters, and I think we will have the opportunity to undergo this kind of training. So will you study yourselves with care during the next 6 months and see if what I later suggest is not true? Upon the information given in a treatise on the 7 rays, use that as your guide and in this self-analysis. So volume 1, volume 2, they were written first. Be guided there. And, if you want to go to esoteric psychology, page 200 or so, right there, you'll find very simple descriptions of people on the different rays. And I always go back to that because there's information there that in all the complexity of what he's giving later is not mentioned again. So it's really worth it, and it's very practical. So I would remind you that the rays govern 3 bodies, and this we know, except for accepted disciples. So, just figure out that probably this is true for us unless we know we are an accepted disciple, and unless we have a very strong counter-indication. Now, I think this may be as far as I'm going to go right now because it gets very interesting, and I'd like to be able to report to you on these things in a way that is expansive. Because many of the disciples, they had a first-ray body, first-ray astral body, sixth-ray physical body, seventh-ray mind, maybe. No, none of the disciples had the seventh-ray mind, but he does say it is possible to have that. And they had variations on the usual rays. Now, if they had variations on the usual rays, it meant that in some manner of speaking, they were an accepted disciple. And that's all I'm going to say right now. We'll get into it next time. And, gosh, maybe we've even done 2 pages here. That would be something. And I'm just going to put down when I think we're going to be meeting again. If we run into conflicts with the full moon, we'll let you know, but I haven't got the moment to research that at the moment. So we finished here, number 108, and we finished reading 8, and it is the 15th of March, and I think we went from page 90, maybe to 92, I don't know. Yes, sorry, to page 92. Okay. And the next time, whenever that is, because when we have a direct collision with a lot of full moon things.
Michael, we have on the 22nd.
What is on this 22nd, Tuija? What
we
is
have
that?
The Glamour webinar at 6 p.m.
Okay.
GMT.
Okay, good. Okay. And I'm going to the United States shortly after that. So the schedule will be a little bit rearranged, and we'll let you know about that. And we'll be beginning here at number 92, and it'll be the evening session. Okay, good. Well, it really gets interesting, folks. We have to manage our own training, and while we don't have Master DK supervising our training in the way that these particular disciples did, he has given enough so that with our own intention to be self-trained and his general advice, we can make progress. Okay, now, if you have thoughts, questions on these matters, then you are most welcome to ask them or to state them or to write them or to talk them, whatever you might like to do. I think you'll have to admit this is really, really interesting material. You know, I'm rereading it after many years, and I see, you know, that maybe I didn't read as carefully as I needed to. He's always advising us to read his words with care, because in a single word he can give the hint uh, which we need. So we've looked at,
Michael,
yes, Tuija, go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
I was just thinking before you go ahead about all of this, what would I call, challenge or mystery of the dweller. And of course, you were already reading about in cosmic sense that when we use the law of analogy or correspondences, we can think that these planes, how far they will actually go, if that is true, what we find on the physical plane. And the whole cosmic physical plane is corresponding to the lowest physical etheric plane.
Exactly.
On these 7 planes. But
Exactly.
then, even
Yeah.
higher image,
Well,
we can find that the cosmic me. So in that sense, the dilemma of the duality, how far it actually travels in the
well, you know,
space.
let me tell you what I think the ultimate duality is. I mean, excuse me. There comes a point when in the universe all is resolved into unity, but you have not escaped duality, because the universe is finite and the world of ultimate causation, the causeless cause, is infinite. And that is, to me, the ultimate duality between the absolutely infinite and the finite universe. And I think, to tell you the truth, you know, this is way beyond, but the only time duality is ever resolved is in absoluteness, assuming the unchanging nature of absoluteness and the fact that it is the realm of no number. So you cannot find a way to divide anything within the absolute, and therefore there can be no duality. But that goes quite, you know, as long as we're in the universe, duality resolves itself on the very highest levels, but then you look around and say, wait a second, there's the duality of the finite and the infinite, and you have to deal with that one.
Well, yes, but I didn't even go this way as you have been reading it. Just looking these planes and where we actually are fighting with the shadow. But then the point when contemplating about that, and that is not only coming now, it has been for years. I have been trying to understand how we can find for us, when we think about the initiation, when we think about the real challenges. TK was pointing out about the race and the see in our co-workers, how to help each other. And this is only a thought, because I think that these obvious things that we have, flaws like that, being angry or being lazy or we fear things, they are something what I don't think are really the obstacles. I think this innate, what you were talking in relationship to Leo, and what I have been telling you in my early experiences, how I was inside my head, and I once realized some glamour in me. Only one. Yes.
Only one.
that thing that I realized that it was a real glamour. I thought it was a good thing, but I realized no, it was horrible thing. And that taught me that how many of those horrible things I have in me, that I don't recognize them. And that has been like a years lasting hunt inside my head to trying to figure out those those very well failed things. And I think those are the things which would really help each of us, because the glamour and the dweller is so intricate, which has been formed throughout the millions of years. It is so innate built that the structure, which really prevents us. So we see those obvious things, which prevents, of course. But what are those hidden things which are behind the veil and behind the veil, behind the veil, which really stops us? And this whole idea there is the dweller on the gate, looking, eyes open, the angel of presence. I think it is telling us, we know that the initiation is, and the going through the initiation, it's not the victory of the personality, it's the victory of the soul. So when who are looking each other, there is this mystery, how the one who comes to redeem is able actually to redeem the other. And I think in the I stored this whole story of, and the mystery. When that who is in the shadow looks the other, I think that is the part.
Are you there?
Most
Wait.
They are not there to be redeemed.
Wait, it's cutting.
Where are you?
It's cutting. It was cutting.
Yes.
It was cutting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, do I need to repeat?
Yeah. Yes. That last part, because it cut considerably. Yes. Just repeat that last part.
Yeah. So that those who are looking each other, the one who has eyes opened is ready to be redeemed. Those who has eyes closed, they are not ready to be redeemed. And the symbol of the devas of the shadow is the eye. And when you were reading that, the first time it dawned to my mind, so maybe that is telling about this is the substance, or these are the entities, beings in the shadows who actually are ready to be taken further, transformed, which is the whole healing process. But then going back to the astrology, how to find within oneself where this drama is taking place, these real things taking place. So I take always the myth as a tool for me. So looking at the labors of Hercules, where the Hercules was victorious. Could we look that these are the things for the soul to redeem in those energies where he was victorious? So he was victorious in the sign of Leo. And then I was thinking that, yes, he was able to kill the Nemean
lion.
beast, the lion.
Yeah.
Yes, so he was victorious in this. And he was, it was a long fight, but when we look the constellations behind the decanates of Leo, we have the crow in the end, which is about the law. And I somehow always relate these, in some sense, these constellations which are behind the signs, that they are related to decanates. So in the last decade of Leo, we find the reculus, which is the heart.
Heart of the lion. Yes.
So I think that there is something when we have these areas activated, the last decade of Leo activated, I think that there is something, some redeeming forces working, and could be maybe looked in one's chart when those times come, if there is even some planet that when that is activated, how that is then reflected to the triangle, fire triangle, how that is related to the fixed cross. But also, which is so interesting, that in Taurus there is the constellation Auriga behind the second decanate. And this Auriga, the chariot, or how you call it, the chariot, one who
chariot is correct.
The sun.
Charioteer, chariot.
So, charioteer, right. So, but he has this goat attached to him, which is the goat of, I have talked about that because this fascinates me so much. I think there is some hints for us. The Taurus itself is related to the new group of world servers. The second decanate have this Auriga who has the goat. And that goat is the goat who was feeding Jupiter. So there is some alignments with the spirit, but it has the Gorgon eye in it. So in Auriga, in Taurus, we have the eye of evil. And I think, and Taurus is opposing the Scorpio, which is the real Twiller. So, but there is something going on.
Well, you know what I think Taurus. We have to do? We have to have a series of webinars on these things because it can lead us into a huge speculation. But the eye of the bull and the eye of evil, you know, both are found. There's a lot of things we could say right now, but I think we've got to just, you know, stick to this for right now. Let a few more people speak, and then we'll get into our meditation, because this is a vast subject, and I think we should undertake it. And you know, there's something I could say right now, and I don't want to say it. But it has to do with what is a chariot. You know, what is a chariot? And I'm not even going to talk about that, but I'm just going to say that the second decanate of Leo and of Taurus tell an interesting story. But look, maybe just to make a general principle here, that all of this network of energies is underlying what we do, how we behave, what our troubles are, whether we are overcoming or not overcoming. So we really have to study carefully what we're dealing with in terms of energy in order to know the best way to advance. And you've given me an idea, Tuija, that this is a real discussion, and we have to do that.
Yeah, just putting synthesizing about these two eyes, the eye of the presence, the eye of the personality.
Yeah, exactly.
So this in Taurus, and also the eye of the bull in Taurus. So there is some faith going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that was.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. Okay. Thank you for your thoughts there. And Ariel, you go ahead, please.
Okay. Could you tell something about this idea of group causal body?
Yes.
And also that this also brings us also responsibilities towards that group which we are belonging.
Yes. Our best qualities in the group are all fused together. He talks about that, of the combination of lotuses. So it's just an analogy, really. Just the way the individual has the causal body of qualities and the personality, which is oftentimes the opponent. So the whole group has the method of bringing the qualities of their causal body together. He doesn't tell you exactly how that occurs, but we can pretty well understand that it is in the form of a lotus, and that when we improve the quality of our own causal body, automatically it feeds into what the group itself can do, and and vice versa. So I think it's simply an analogical factor. A little bit of research on that. Do you have the CD-ROM, Ario? The Alice Bailey CD-ROM?
Yes, I have. I don't have this complete one that you are using.
But for about $100 or euros or maybe 100,
yeah,
it's very good. It's very good, and you can do a lot of research right there. And there are these groupings. I'll show you very quickly what I mean. That here, and I think I've shown this before, but if you go to Letters on Occult Meditation, and you go to page 39, he shows you how the groups gather on different levels, and probably every one of us is a member of all these groups, our specific groups. The lowest one is on the third subplane of the mental plane, and the highest one is on the monadic plane. And in every one of these groups, the fusion that is implied in your question is taking place. So that what's going on there is not just a bunch of individuals, but it's an aggregate of qualities that is available on the different subplanes. So right now, people like ourselves, we're moving into an area where there are 42 groups, and they are found on the second level of the higher mental plane. And, eventually it'll be 35, and then collecting on the Buddhic plane and so forth. And these are things that I'm hoping he will elaborate upon when he gives his new teaching. But this is a very important page 38 and 39, and shows you our higher affiliations. And the principle here is improve the quality of your own causal body, and the group lotus will then be enriched. It's pretty simple, and in terms of the dynamics of how it works, you can only use the law of analogy, because he has not filled out the nature of the group causal body. He has not discussed that fully. So I hope that it's a start. It's a start in the direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Mario. Okay, everybody. Now, are there other thoughts or questions that you may have? We're going to meditate on that particular glamour that we've been talking about, that narrow point of view. I guess what do they say? A little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and I've joked about this, and I said, hey, well then, all knowledge is a little knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is a dangerous thing. You think, oh, well, now I really know something, and it's just a drop in the bucket, So, unless we use our knowledge wisely, it is just karmic responsibility heaped upon us. So one day we should all sit down with ourselves and say, okay, what do I really know? What do I think I know? What would I like to know? Those three categories, and then assess how we are using the knowledge that we actually have, so that we can see whether we're piling up karmic obligation or whether we're working towards freedom and liberation. Okay.
Michael.
Oh, here, yes, Tuija, yeah.
One thing about this narrow point of view, when people are struggling and we are struggling to try to find what is the correct way and what is the correct opinion of the things, these many hundreds of things at the moment, what are facing us. I think a good way to look is always about that however difficult it would be, but if we try to separate us from the whole, from the others, that is never the way to go. That we should actually put ourselves always into the process, difficult process maybe, but which consists more and which would put us in relationship with the world, with others. And today is the International Day of Children all around the world, school children who are taking their stand for the climate change, global warming. So people, this has started from this girl from Sweden. And so in different countries now, the children of the world are standing and they are demanding adults to take some action. So it's this is telling about the global awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, you know, there's one great sin, and you know this, and one great heresy, the great heresy of separateness. That's the one thing we have to fight against, and a global point of view is indeed what we need. Now, I see here that Alexandra has her hand up, and let's see, what do we have? Would you like to have a quick catch-up? Oh, yes. You know, last night, you know, speaking of glamour and narrow points of view and, people that are wedded to their particular point of view, there was a very important vote last night in the British Parliament. And Alex, can you give us just the sort of briefest rundown on that so everybody's aware of this? It could go into detail, I know. It could go into detail, but just for everybody's awareness, because it affects everybody, let's just put it like this. The United Kingdom is one of the three great nation groups that is responsible for the welfare of humanity in the future, along with the U.S. and Russia. So what goes on here is really important. Alex, just give us a tiny little encapsulation.
Good morning. Actually, Michael, that message was just meant for you.
Oh, sorry.
And to see if you and Tuija wanted to have a chat.
We will in more detail. But basically, I think the main thing from last night was an extension of the dropout date or crash out date or leave date or whatever. And it just opens up a whole new series of battles, I'm sure.
Problem.
Yeah.
And I think the other important fact is that the most significant amendment, which was put forward by Hilary Benn of the Labour Party and Yvette Cooper, the great Remainers, they put forward an amendment that Parliament should take back control from the government and be able to vote, put forward what's called indicative votes to, as this period proceeds, to kind of decide what happens next. And that lost by 2 votes.
Yes.
So what everyone is talking about is that it was quite disturbing that the members of Parliament voted against themselves having power.
Yeah.
And this was a big political move, and they're putting the responsibility on 6 Labour opposition MPs who voted against giving themselves power to decide what happens next. And as a result of that, they have given the Prime Minister back the power to bring this to ordeal to another vote next Tuesday.
I know. It's amazing.
Another vote next Tuesday. So the glamour is just it's intense, and yeah, there's a big fog here.
Well, when I would recommend, you know, in this sort of Parliament Live at UK or something like that, you see how the process operates. If you haven't tuned in on that, even for 10 or 15 minutes, it's really worth doing. You certainly see the first ray, you certainly see the seventh ray, and you see the formality and the informality and the way a major government, looked at in the large sense, conducts its business. And it's really worth it to tune in on that. And I've enjoyed it, and it's been very illuminating as well, and sometimes a little bit shakes you up a bit. But I would recommend that to people. You can get that right off your computer. And as long as you're within the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning to, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night in their time, or 9 o'clock, whatever, you can pick it up. And it's really worth it.
Yes, so I would say that next Tuesday, you can watch that again. But also, as I messaged you, watching the European Parliament debate Brexit is also very informative.
Okay.
Because there's another whole side to the story as well.
Yes.
Alex and Michael, I would like to add to there that why it's important for us to be involved with this is that because it's not only what's going on in Great Britain, it is about that this center, the London, is also planetary center.
Yes.
And that's why it's our responsibility to keep on this invocation of the plan to descend. What is really the plan? So we can be looking at all of these people, they are working out their dharmas and karmas and whatever, and there is this personality level, and it is heating up emotionally, this group and that group and so forth. But we need to, and it is about how difficult it is at this time for whole humanity to see what is correct action.
Yes.
That's why we have so many opinions, because nobody knows. The only way is to turn to the hierarchy, turn to those who really knows, who are the real directors. But if we don't keep this door open, we can say that this is the moment again, one of those where the dweller of the humanity is looking the angel of presence, eyes open. So if we don't keep these doors open, those who are working underneath and who are from the counterforce, they do keep their doors open. They use all of these heated up emotions and gives food for all of these separatistic actions. So we need to stand together, just calm and invoke that this is descending. And I think that is one of the things why this process is so difficult, because these are huge forces now working, and that the drama is taking place in Europe as it is taking place in United States, both places which are under the region of Master R.
Yeah. Well, these are good things to keep. Yes.
Can I just say?
We're going to get
something?
going on. Let's make it very brief, Alex, because then we've got to get into the meditation somewhat on these matters. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that there was an argument last night about whether Britain is in a worse position than the United States, and and obviously British people feel that they're worse off than the United States, because the argument goes that the present president will only be there for 4 to 8 years, but Brexit is forever. And obviously, people are taking it very personally, because I don't know if people are aware of how it is going to affect individuals' lives very adversely. So obviously they are emotional about it. But the fact is that behind the present president, there's a whole line of other people. It is not just that one person. So therefore, my response would be that this is a disease that is affecting both great nations equally in different forms, and it's not going to be easily resolved. That's all.
Yeah. That's okay, and that is important to know. Now, I'll tell you what. I think this plays right into our subject matter for our meditation, and let us focus on that. Okay, wait a second. No, we have now. I've got to honor a few hands that have come up. I feel like the Speaker of the House, Mr. Berko. Point of order. Catherine, you're self-muted, but you wanted to say something. Catherine Pyre in Australia.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Very well. Thanks, Catherine.
Oh, good. All right. A couple of things. I did want to talk about the dweller subject because it's really fascinating, and there's so much to say about the dweller, and there's a couple of things I felt that was really, really interesting when you were talking about the dweller. I always saw the dweller as something that was grows, that is more becomes sort of larger the more that you become aware of it as you go on, sort of as you evolve, rather than seeing it as initially seeing it as fragments of the dweller. So I thought that was really, really interesting, because it makes more sense to me. So what I think that I've seen as the dweller would have been just like a fragment of the dweller.
I believe.
And also, yeah. And then and that it just sort of makes sense as that more fragments of that is seen later down, and also that is a good thing, because it reveals and makes you aware and also warns you. So I actually the fragment that I believe that I saw of a dweller was actually quite revealing, yeah, and think made me aware and thought that's like a potential. As well, a potential that could grow or go in a different direction or whatever. So I realised that the dweller or fragments of the dweller is actually a very, very good thing.
It can be, in psychology you can turn any quality into a positive. Okay, so like every head of the Hydra has its positive side. Okay. Yeah.
So that was just one little. It was just one little. And I did have a question, but maybe later on, to do with when you were talking about that the dweller is even around at the 5th initiation. I was wondering whether you could actually talk a little bit more about that.
I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until we have those five things, and because it's quite a subject. And it has to do with the fusion of the dweller, the angel of the presence, and the presence. So obviously we're dealing with monad, soul, and personality at the 5th initiation. So I'll wait until we get to that point. But suffice it to say, alternatives are offered here that we may not have thought about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I just find that really interesting. That I can't wait for that bit. But anyhow, I just wanted to tell you it's a really shocking thing that's happened in Christchurch, and I don't know whether you guys would have heard about this yet.
Just read it.
Yeah. There's been a massacre. Dozen fears to be dead. In at least 2 gunmen opened fire in 2 central Christchurch mosques, and they think that there's about 4 people, and one of them is Australian and a white supremacist sort of person. So yeah, it's really shocking the fear and hatred that people have that is coming up. It's terrible. So they think there's about 40 dead, I think.
This is Pluto. And everything we don't want to look at is going to be thrown in our face. And this is this part of this cleansing before the reappearance. And it just, some horrific things are coming up. I mean, some of you will read about this. Some of you are, it's still in the middle of the night and all the rest of it. But was it in one mosque that this occurred, or in two mosques?
In two, it's saying, opened fire in at least two central Christchurch mosques.
Mm-hmm. See, so however you feel about the relationship between the religions and political systems, massacres, murder, these cannot be allowed as methods of solution. So this is going to cause a big thing in Australia and around the world, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, friends, I think we're getting to that point. We are getting to the point where we have to have our little meditation. Okay. So why don't we do that? And all I have to do is find the meditation, and everything is fine. Let's see. This is the science of triangles. And here we go. Here's the meditation. Now, so again, speaking of what causes people to hate so violently that they cannot possibly identify with the person they hate. They are, to use a kind of a word, they are othering everything. Like there's who I am, and then there's you. And there's no way of seeing the real relationship between us. You are just strange, you are other, you are to be eliminated, see. And that is a very primitive state of mind, but the people are the victims of the great heresy of separateness. And as disciples in training, we have a lot of work to do on that. And it's not going to be easy on us either. So let's just enter the silence one more time. When we feel ourselves coming together in one united field of awareness, and in the silence is the integration, is the unification. And when you do this with your smaller groups, then you can take the full 10 minutes and how it suggests here. So now we're going to use the cross of divinity, because we're dealing with that very troubled area. He tells us the astral plane, and he uses the word in general. He says the greatest plane of illusion at the present time. So, as a soul, I work in light. And darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. So there is this cross of light. He calls it the cross of divinity before each one of us. It is a necessary protection. and before the entire assembled group. So that we can work on the astral plane here and safely work and effectively work. Now we'll deal with the triple light. First we lift from below the vital light of matter onto the imagined mental plane. And blend it with the light of lower mind, where we think and reason and do all the things which the mind can do. Two types of light. And the two lights blend together. The use of light is to evoke even more light and revelation of a higher kind. So now we have a vitalized use of the lower mind, and we'll add to that the light of the soul, which we first seek to contact, and bring that light of the soul down into the place where two lights as one await, and blend, we fuse in the imagination the soul light with the blended light of matter and of mind. Try to get a feeling for this fusion. The soul light will reveal the truth, and the light of mind will clarify confusions, and the light of matter, vital, will support it all. Three lights are one. And we will say together, followed by the sacred word, visualizing this light out of which our searchlight will come, we say, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. So we are scientifically, in the sense of the occult sciences, working with light in the realm of glamour. Now our formula, and as we say these words, we'll visualize the great searchlight coming forth from the triple blended light, and we're turning that searchlight upon the astral plane as we imagine it. Each one of us has really a beam, but the many beams combine to make the group beam. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. So meaning and understanding and the soul perspective, we are bringing these onto the astral plane, where so much confusion and veiling of the truth is occurring. We pause for a moment. And then we're going to strengthen our beam with the spiritual will. So whatever will means to you in the higher sense, see it strengthening the group beam. And we say, as we watch and feel this strengthening, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. Now we're going to use these words of power, but first to think just a little bit about what self-assured narrow-mindedness has brought about within humanity and the planet. Just think about that problem of the self-assured, narrow-minded approach and what it has meant for the individual, for humanity, and for the planet. And then we will utter these words of power, and we'll have then some silent time to meditate upon them in our own way. So the glamour to be dissipated that we're concentrating on now, all these glamours are interrelated, we know, is self-assured narrow-mindedness. Self-assured narrow-mindedness. So the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of self-assured narrow-mindedness. I suppose the opposite of this is this humble, broad-mindedness. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour of self-assured narrow-mindedness from affecting humanity, negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour. Now, you take this into your own visualization as the light is penetrating the glamour, weakening it, dissipating it, and we will do that for 5 minutes using the words of power or whatever approach you would like to use to help to clear the astral plane of self-assured, narrow-mindedness, and all the emotion and the drive that goes into promoting that self-assured, narrow-minded point of view. So, 5 minutes. And so, if our work is successful and the work of other groups like our own, under the guidance of hierarchy, we will have a proportional attitude, because humility is an adjusted sense of right proportion, and we will not be self-assured knowing how little we know, and we will be wide-minded and attempt to be inclusive in our understanding. And so, in our conversations with others, we emphasize the inclusive point of view, and when possible, to help take away that false assurance which leads to prideful demonstrations and separative demonstrations. Not everybody can take that, of course, but where possible, wide-mindedness, humility, proportion, and a much fuller view of the wholeness in which we are all related. And of course, we will not pursue with desire that which our meditation has revealed to be inadequate and separative and very partial. So finally, one day, the whole is seen as one. Now, we withdraw our beam back onto the mental plane, into the three lights as one, and we can reactivate that. And thinking and knowing that some work of value has been done, and there is some little bit of clarity, a little more clarity, a little more truth, a little less veiling and obscuring and hiding of the truth, we sound the Om 3 times, sensing or affirming even a little clarification on the mental, emotional, and etheric physical levels. Excuse me. Well, friends, little by little, week by week, and if you're working on any kind of distortion which you have found in your own personal nature, then day by day we work in this way. using the ancient methods recommended by Master DK to esoterically help to dissipate this real world problem. Still a world problem. This may have been written 80 years ago, but it's still a world problem and will intensify as people become desperate as we move towards 2025. And under that desperation, for various reasons, they will attempt to force the issue regarding things which should not be forced. And glamours will be forced, and illusions will be forced, and some will work to promote the great heresy of separateness. And we as students of occultism, we're working in the opposite direction, and we do our best to ameliorate the situation. So tomorrow morning we will continue with readings from the Destiny of the Nations. It'll be a broadcast and dealing with the soul of nations, and then on Sunday, the attracting money for hierarchical purposes. Tuija and Olivia and myself, we want to thank you for attending. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm just going to ask that Alexandra and Tuija stay on. We have a few things we have to deal with, and wish you all a very fine day or night or whatever time it is for you. And we continue our work together in unity on behalf of hierarchy and humanity. Thank you very much for your work, your attendance. Okay. So Alexandra and Tuija, please remain, and everyone else, have a great day, night, or whatever time it is for you. It's been good to work with you. See you soon. And Michael, if you will help me, dismiss the folks, that'd be good.
Got it.